Dave, I've got to embarrass you first. I know you want to try and sidestep it, but I'm going to give you everyone Dave's life story before he gives you his talk.
Have we got time?
Oh, we have. We've got 30 seconds. We've got 30 seconds. Only joking. Okay, so in case you didn't know, Dave is a treasured author of Macmillan Education, the author of all of the Gateway series. So it's an absolute pleasure to see him today. He also teaches teenagers in Spain on a daily basis. He started writing, can I say this number, Dave? We're talking about ages. It seems fitting. Shall I say the year that you started writing for Macmillan?
Go on. I'm not ashamed. I'm proud.
Do you know what? We have got time. I'm going to ask everyone, what year do you think Dave started writing for Macmillan? Not his age, but the year. What age do you think?
Don't put my age.
1940, Dave. How do you feel about that? 97. Oh, no one's got it yet. Some people have been touching it. Very, very close. Really close. I'll just tell you, this could go on for a long time. So it's 1994 since Dave has started writing Macmillan. So an absolute treasure to the Macmillan family. And it's my pleasure to introduce him. We're running a little bit late, so I'm going to head off right now, Dave. Have a great session and see you later, everybody.
Great. Thanks a lot. Yeah, I think treasured is another way of saying old too. So I'm not sure if that worked, okay, the presentation. But anyway, it's fine to be older. And by the way, my answer to that question as well was that definitely you're never too old to play games, okay? I hope you like my hat. I think I'm going to take it off while I get serious to give my talk. And I'd just like to say hello world. I know that we've got lots of people from Poland, from Georgia, from Russia, from Mexico, from Slovakia, from Peru, Argentina, Serbia, Pakistan I saw, Turkey I've seen lots, Spain of course, where I live. So hello world, and it's great to be here. I'm talking today about revision, and I should explain that it is possibly for you too late to do some revision or evaluation in your classes. Maybe you're getting ready already for the end of term. Can I ask you, what is your last day at school before the summer holidays? Can you type in the box? When is it? The 24th, Elena. Tuesday the 22nd. Right, so a lot of people finishing roundabout now, yeah? If you're about to finish classes already and it's too late to do these activities, don't worry, because these activities will be useful for the end of any term, for the end of the year, for the end of a unit in your book. So all of the different activities are to be used at any time when you want to revise. And I've got a few different main aims in my talk today. I've got 4 main aims. The first main aim is, of course, to give you revision activities. You can see from the title of my session, we're talking about revision. But number 2 is also important. What I want to suggest are different ways to maximize the participation of the students, to make sure that they are fully involved. This morning in the chat box, a teacher called Taher shared this brilliant quotation, which I believe in a lot. It says, "Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I remember. Involve me and I learn." And I believe very much in that sentiment, which is why today's session is all about maximizing the students' participation. Thirdly, I want to suggest how we can encourage collaboration between our students, particularly, obviously, I'm talking about teenagers. And fourthly, I want to get students reflecting. I want to get them thinking, thinking about what we've done, thinking about why we've done it, and thinking about how they feel about what they've studied. Okay, so I'm going to start with the easiest activity. It's a very simple question to ask your students at the end of the term, or at the end of the year, or at the end of the unit. This question is very simple, it's very powerful, it's also sometimes very difficult to answer. My question is, this is what I ask my students: what did we do this term? Okay, so it's a very simple question. What did we do? Of course, when you ask your students that question, the reaction is sometimes like this. Okay, it can take students by surprise when you ask them, what did we do? And on a good day, maybe they will simply answer, what did we do this term? Well, we did English, didn't we? Okay, but it is an interesting question. Hello, Isabel. It's a good question because it's getting the students to think. Now, if we're talking about revision, this is question number 1, isn't it? It's the most useful question. What did we do? Now, when your students give you feedback and they tell you what they studied, then that's very interesting, isn't it? What do they remember? What do they not remember? That's very interesting feedback for you. You can see what was memorable for them and what wasn't memorable. That could maybe give you interesting feedback about what you're teaching, if it's useful, and also how you're teaching it. Is it effective? Okay, so a simple question. What I do is, if I'm in the classroom, I use the Blackboard. If I'm teaching online, I use a Google Doc, or you could even just use a Word document. And I get my students to brainstorm anything they've done, out of order, in any order they like, but get them to brainstorm the things that they've done. Now, this is actually my class from this term. They are B2 plus students. And these are the things that we've studied. So we've got past tenses, phrasal verbs, words connected with films, opinion essays, linkers. We studied how to describe photos. Maybe they will simply say we watched a video about, or we listened to a song about. But you get all of these ideas. You put them onto the board, and you're really activating their memory simply to remember the main things that we've done this month, this unit, this term, or this year. In fact, the more frequently we do this, the better. Now, the next question that I ask my students is, how would you categorize those different things? Okay, so how would you categorize the different things we've done? Could anybody suggest in the chat box different ways to categorize this information that we've just seen? I'll show it to you again. How could you categorize those different things? Grammar, okay, so grammar, somebody said straight away, by skills. Somebody's put helpful, which is interesting. Yeah, so was it helpful, not helpful? How attractive it was to the students. Okay, it could be visual as well. Yeah, how useful. Yeah, productive. So it could be productive versus active. Boring or fun, and hard or easy. Right, so you can do this again with your students. Get them to give you this feedback, and this feedback is very useful for you, isn't it? What have they found useful? What did they find less useful? What did they find interesting? What would they consider to be active? What would they consider to be passive? Now, in terms of revision, we can obviously divide these things into maybe the classical ways that we would probably separate language, in this case, English. We've got grammar, we've got vocabulary, we've got writing skills, speaking skills. Maybe we could put together the receptive skills. Remember, we might also have things like life skills, if they've studied any life skills this term, exam strategies. So whatever you want, the point would be for you and the student to decide first how you want to categorize what you have done. Of course, one thing I should say is when your students see all of these things on the board, it's already quite motivating, isn't it? Because sometimes they lose sight of what they did. They lose sight of their progress. They just think that they did something, but they don't know what they did. If we can, and this is not complete, by the way, but if we get all of this information onto the board, it's very empowering for the students to see, wow, yeah, actually, this term we've done a lot. So it's already a motivational activity, simply getting the students to look at all of this. Yeah, as Joanne says, yeah, we've done so much already. And I think that's powerful motivation. Now, the next question that I ask my students is another simple but actually difficult question sometimes. Why did we do what we did? Why did we do these things? Now, what was the point? Let's go back. Let's look at my board again. If you look at those different things, why did we do it? Why did we look at word stress in compound nouns? Well, we saw those compound nouns. We need to know how to pronounce them. That's why we did it. So they're going to be useful when we're using the words speaking. Somebody has just said, yes, Ebru, I think that's just saying that, yes, to know the aim motivates students. And I think that's really, really powerful. Why did we do this? Why did we learn how to describe photos? Well, because it's useful for exams, but it's also useful for real life to describe situations, to describe scenes. I'd like to reflect for a second on this idea of critical thinking. We get students to think critically, to question what they read, what they listen to. Let's get them also to question our own classes. So why did we do this? Personally, somebody's asked a question, what about adults? I would say do this exactly the same with adults. Personally, I would do it in exactly the same way. I was going to say, I love it when students ask me, why are we doing this? I don't find that questioning my authority. I think it's a very good question. Why are we doing this song? Why are we doing this video? Why are we doing this grammar point? And I believe that if we haven't got a good answer to give our students, then we are in trouble, because we need to know. If we don't know why the students are doing it, then they are going to question what they are doing. English is a very practical subject. It's a subject to use in the classroom, but more importantly, outside the classroom. If we can't think of reasons for doing what we're doing in class, then we need to think again about our content. Now, we've ascertained what we have studied so far this term, month, year. My next suggestion is to get students to actually teach it to other students. Here, teaching, we're saying revising, okay? So revising it and helping other students to remember it. Very famous quotation, I'm sure you know this quotation from Albert Einstein. If you can't explain it to a 6-year-old, you don't understand it yourself. And I think you would agree. You can tell me in the chat box if you agree or not. You're free to disagree. But the time when I really understood English grammar or English phrasal verbs or all of these things that I teach, the time when I really understood it was the first time I started to teach it. When you learn things as a student, you have a certain amount of passive knowledge. When you actually have to explain it to somebody else, then you start to internalize it and to know it better. And again, the longer you teach, probably the better you understand it and know it. Now, our students will not be as good as we are as at explaining, but the point is they are getting to grips with the language. So we're talking about revision, remember. What I do is I separate my class into groups or pairs. And then what I do is I assign an element that I want to revise to each group or pair. So, for example, this is my board again. You can see that I've asked Juan and Sofia to revise past tenses. I've asked Carlos and Sara to revise verbs plus gerund and infinitive. I've got 3 people doing modal verbs of obligation. Whatever you want to revise, these are just examples. You can do whatever examples you like. I separate my class into groups and they each have a language area or a skills area. Step 3, I ask my students then to prepare a mini presentation. I explain they are going to explain their language point to other students in the class, and they have time to prepare their presentation. The presentation could be a Blackboard presentation with visuals. It could be a PowerPoint presentation. It could be a mini lecture with questions. They can decide, but you give each group a language area, and then you tell them to prepare a mini lesson, a mini class. We're talking 5 minutes, 10 minutes, okay? The preparation time could last longer. So the preparation could last 10 minutes. We're doing twice the amount of revision, remember, because first the students are revising so that they can prepare their presentation. Next, the students are revising because the other students are listening to their presentation. So I want to stress the activities that I'm suggesting are ones where the students generate all of the work, all of the practice. The students are involved in the presentation, in the preparation, and the follow-up too, okay? So 100% participation on the part of the students. Right now, when we ask students to work in groups or in pairs, like I've just suggested, I think it's very important also to work on collaboration. Collaboration between teenagers, even between adults. We sometimes assume that students will collaborate positively and effectively, but sometimes maybe we need to encourage them and give them tips to be able to do this. If you read my little task box here, what I'm suggesting is that within the group, each student should find a role that they feel comfortable with. So maybe in your group of 3, one of the students feels very comfortable about presenting, whereas another student feels less comfortable presenting, but they feel happier preparing. Maybe one student feels good at preparing a visual to help understand the point. And so we need to actually encourage specifically that collaboration. And to do that, it's a good idea to give them useful language. So you can see my language here. It's like negotiating, collaborating. So for example, Maria, are you happy doing this? Can I do this part? I'd like to do this. Can I volunteer to do the other? Why don't you do this? So we're giving them the language and we're reminding them that this is the way we collaborate effectively together. Another suggestion, another collaborative skill to develop, listening to other people. And again, we think that our students will know how to listen, but often they don't listen. And again, maybe unfortunately, adults don't always listen to one another. What also happens is that sometimes some students are very loud and some students are very quiet. And I think it's important in terms of dynamics that we encourage the quieter students to also participate in small group work. I want everybody to participate. So again, if you look at the useful language, this type of language can really be powerful. Let's listen to Oscar. It's Olga's turn to speak so that they respect each other's right to be able to speak and to share ideas. And there will always be a leader in a group, but I think it's important to persuade the students to work together. Collaboratively, constructively. Right, I want to go back to my idea of teaching something to learn it. Now, I think that many of you know by now flipped classroom videos. They are short grammar videos, for example, or vocabulary videos. You can find lots of them on YouTube. If you Google flipped classroom English, you'll find lots of different videos. And of course, as Andro says, if you use Gateway, you will also know my flipped classroom videos. Now, I want to share something that happened at the beginning of the lockdown in March, April, when the lockdown began in Spain and also, for example, in Belgium. And maybe the only good thing that happened to me was that suddenly this wonderful teacher, Valérie Hirsou, from this school, Dame de Marie in Brussels, she suddenly told me that her students were all imitating me. By the way, they're imitating me because I do this in my videos. If you've seen my videos, I often do this. She told me her students were imitating me, and she asked if she could send me some videos. She sent me some videos which were absolutely wonderful because her students of all different levels, they prepared some videos. They were not all flipped classroom videos. Some of them were just explaining their lives. But I would like to share with you today just half, the second half of a video. And it's by a student called Ceyda. She was, I think she's born in Turkey, but she lives in Brussels. And she has, I'm just wondering if I should be clicking this or whether I should be letting my colleagues in Will, I don't know if Will's doing it or if it's just taking a long time to charge. But anyway, I'm going to carry on talking and hopefully we'll see the video in a second. And if I need to do something, Will, you can just let me know. We're going to watch the video. Ceyda is simply, in a way, sort of imitating what I was doing in a flipped classroom situation. And I'll think, Will, maybe, do you want to tell me something? We seem to have frozen. In that case, maybe the best thing is not to show you. Yeah, it's loading very slowly, in which case it might be better just to continue with the presentation because we never have much time. I think we'll go back to the presentation and I'll simply explain what Ceyda did. Would it be possible for you to take me back to my presentation or is the whole thing frozen? This is what happens with beautiful technology. At the moment, I haven't got it. So maybe my computer is the problem. You can see me, right? But can you see the video? No, it's not on. So the presentation, now my problem now is whether the presentation has frozen. If it has frozen, I can still carry on explaining everything that I was going to explain today. Will or Greg, do you want to give me a clue about what's the best thing to do now? Yeah, it's loading, but I think it will load forever. Okay. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. And then I'm sure there will be another time when we can see the video together. It's a shame because it's a beautiful video and it worked perfectly this morning. This is what often happens. Yes, I'll definitely try and share. I'm sure there's some way to share it. Right, it's interesting because some people saw the video, but I couldn't actually see the video. I think it takes so long to load that we all get a bit of lagging. Right. This is so frustrating. Anyway, I'm going to keep on talking if I may. Can you just let me know if you can still see me and hear me, right? Okay, I think we've got the presentation back. We're going to be in the right place. I wonder maybe actually when we get to the question and answer session, maybe there's a way that we can try to load that. Yeah. We could try and do that. That might be a good idea. Okay. Right, okay, so if we get a chance later, we'll see the video. It's a beautiful video. What I was going to explain in the video is that Ceyda, she makes a few mistakes when she explains the grammar, but what she does is she gives lots of wonderful examples which are completely from her own life. So what I want to explain is she's made the English grammar her own. She's taken a grammar explanation and then she's internalized that language and she talks about her own life in a very humoristic, in a very funny way. So why not try to do that with your students? Get your students, if your students, for example, watch the Gateway videos, ask them, get them to imitate me, get them to copy the way that I do it and to give their own examples. And then you can share those videos between the class. When the students make the videos, they practice, they rehearse, they want it to look good, and so they practice again and again, and they give a very polished final version. Now, if we get a chance, we'll see that at the end. If you have little time in class, and I know myself as a teacher, my problem is never having enough time. If you don't have much time to revise in class, you might say some of the activities I have suggested you wouldn't have time to do. In that case, that's exactly why the flipped classroom videos are useful for the students at home. So get the students to watch flipped classroom videos from YouTube, from Gateway, and in that way, you're not using valuable class time, you're getting the students to revise at home. By the way, I just want to give you a little bit of news that, in fact, if you enjoy watching the Gateway flipped classroom videos in 2021, you're going to see some brand new videos, which I'm very excited for you to see, which I think you're going to enjoy. So there's something to look forward to next year if you enjoy those Gateway videos. Right, let me continue. Another thing we can do is get our students to practice grammar by preparing tests themselves. So what I do is I brainstorm different exercise types, and I get the students to brainstorm those on the board. Okay, so can you, in the chat box, can you just write down what are typical grammar exercises that you use in class, or what are typical vocabulary exercises? Thank you, Nana. So you've given me a gap fill. Multiple choice, matching, fill in the blank. Yeah. Correct tenses, true or false, translating even. Yeah. Translating is also an exercise that can work. Correct the mistakes, find the right word. Yeah, these are all great ideas. So very important. We are teachers, so we know these exercises and we are conscious of them. What I do is I get my students to brainstorm exactly the same in the chat box or on the blackboard. We get them to think of all the exercise types that are typical. And then what I do is I give each group or pair a particular exercise type and an area of language. And so in the end, what happens is each group of students, each pair of students has, for example, the present perfect simple and choose the correct alternative. They have a language point, they have an exercise type, and I get them to prepare exercises. Now, of course, what's happening is each pair or group has a different language area. They have a different exercise type. And what we've done is by using the students themselves, we've generated lots and lots and lots of grammar exercises. As before, I always use the expression killing two birds with one stone. The students are revising twice. Firstly, they're revising to prepare the exercise. Then they are revising when they do their classmates' exercises. We've generated lots and lots of work. The students have done all the activity. We haven't had to use any complicated material. All that we've done is to use the students' own memories, work, maybe their textbook too, to help them, and you obviously helping them. But basically, everything is student generated. That's one of the principles of today's session. One thing that I love doing as well is getting the students to test me, okay? And I think that students love testing the teacher. It's what we call role reversal, yeah? The students are testing us, and so they enjoy being in a position of power. What I do, some people ask me, what do I do with the word lists at the back of Gateway, for example? Okay, this is Gateway B1 Plus. And what I get my students to do is I get them, for example, they are going to test me on the vocabulary in Unit 2, okay? They look at their books. I cannot look at anything. And in the back of the book, we have the word no definition. So they take the book and they define the word to me. And for example, how many words can I identify in 5 minutes, for example, okay? Now, the words are transport and travel. I'm going to do this the opposite way. I'm going to test you, but remember, my students would be testing me. I'm going to define a word, and I'm going to ask you then to identify the word. They're all connected with transport and travel. The first word is, it's similar to a bus, but usually it goes, for example, from one city to a different city. Thank you, Magdalene. I think that was the first person, but very fast. My next word is, it's a word that we use to talk about bags. When we travel, we don't take a bag, we take our, when you go on a plane, luggage. Thank you, Anna, excellent. And one more word, okay, because I know that you understand the activity. It's a word which means, for example, you go to catch the plane, but the plane doesn't leave on time. It leaves late. What is the word that we use to describe? Thank you. That was delay. That was very fast. But you get the idea. The important thing here is that the students are testing you in theory, because what's happening is that if the students can define the words to you, that means they know the words, that means they've revised the words, and they've practiced them. So it looks like the students are testing you, but of course you are in fact testing them. Right, I think maybe, because I know that we're a bit late because of the delay, I'm just going to give you a few last ideas. Some people have got to feed their dog, some people have got to watch football matches, and they have to prepare dinner. But just very quickly, okay, the last few things that I want to mention. I suggested my first activity. What did we do this term? Now the next says, how do you feel about what we did? Okay, how do you feel about what we did? So what we're doing here is we are getting the students to talk about their feelings, like emotional learning. We talk about emotional learning. So do you feel confident? Do you feel interested? Do you feel, do you need more practice? Do you not need to look at this again? Do you feel bad because you don't know how to do this orally, for example? But at the end of term, it's a great moment to find out, how do you feel about what we're studying? Are you feeling confident? Are you feeling good? Are you feeling positive? Okay, so that's one question. The next thing, and the last thing that I would do, is finding out, obviously, what you can do to make your students feel better or feel more confident. So if they're not feeling good, this is a great moment for you to get feedback and to plan next term so that you can come back thinking about how you can possibly help them to feel better about what they're doing in English. And the final thing that I want to say now is, at the end of the term, it's a great moment to think about next term. So let's think about next year. So the simple thing to do next is, let's look at what we're going to do next term. Why are we going to study this? So next term, we're going to look at this grammar point. Why? Because it's useful for this, this, or this. Okay, and then how do they feel about that? Are they excited about that? Are they worried about it? Do they have a problem with it? Do they think it's not useful? Let's get some feedback from them. So again, my main aims were particularly to encourage the students, also to get them collaborating, and then finally to get them thinking about how they feel and building their confidence, building their positive feelings towards English. So sorry about the technical problem. Maybe we can still see the video. I know that we're going to possibly have some questions and answers now, so I'm not going to disappear immediately. Andrew has just asked a great question about what my Premier League favorite team is. Well, all I can say, Andrew, is that my football team in the Premier League has the same colors as my Santa Claus hat. That's the clue for you, okay?
That's a good one.
That's very, somebody has got Liverpool exactly correct. How did you guess? And we're playing at 9:15, actually, so no pressure.
Thanks so much, Dave. And indeed, there have been lots and lots of comments and questions. One that perhaps you could start off with, while with luck the video is loading, has been about your overall appraisal of online education. Do you think it's failing, or do you think it's done some good?
Yeah, well, I'm a practicing teacher. So far, I've been in 4 different situations. So I've been teaching synchronously, asynchronously. I've been teaching hybrid with some students at home, some students in the class. And I've also taught with me confined at home and my students all in the classroom. And all I can say is that if we didn't have the online technology that we have now, we would not have been able to do anything. Online teaching has been frustrating, it's been difficult, it's been tricky, but if you think of the alternative, it would be no teaching, no classes, no students, and it would be a bit of a disaster. Actually, Will, if you could get it to 1 minute, the 1 minute mark, that would be perfect.
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can. So to answer that question, yes, it has problems. I was very skeptical personally about online teaching. I was skeptical about Zoom. I was skeptical about Microsoft Teams. But basically, thank goodness we have technology, because otherwise we would have nothing right now. And I do think that I complain myself many days that this doesn't work and the camera and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. But let's think of the alternative. The alternative to technology would be nothing. And it would be a very sad thing for all of our students to, to lose touch with us as teachers, as human beings in this terrible time. And I must just point out, if we get a chance to see the video now, remember, these students were in lockdown. They were in lockdown in Belgium in a very frightening time, the same as in Spain and all around the world. These students were, a little bit lost. And doing this flipped classroom video gave them, something that they could do, create and practice English. And it's all thanks to technology. So, again, we wouldn't have this video if it wasn't for technology.
Yeah, what a wonderful illustration of what you've just said. Okay, so shall we watch it?
Let's
go. I'm going to try and press play.
Yeah, please do.
Let's keep our fingers crossed. Fingers crossed for this.
Fingers crossed, yeah.
Let's go. You see?
Oxygen.
Yep.
Present continuous. We use the present continuous for what?
We better turn our audio off, you two. Let's turn our audio off.
Okay.
We use the present continuous for actions that are happening now or near the moment of speaking. For example, I don't know what I am going to do right now. You are making a video. Actions that are temporary or not a normal routine. Today, I am not going to shopping. Action that happen very often and annoy the speaker. People are always saying that Turkish people eat every day onion. It isn't true. I don't eat onion. I hate onion. Changing situation. Little by little, people are starting. The world are starting. Are starting to change. Horrible. We can't go out. So, teacher Dave, I hope you understand my joke and the grammar point I explain. Have a nice day.
She is so cute.
And there were many other videos, and they all had this. They all had in common that these students are bringing themselves to English. It's just fascinating to watch. They're just bringing their lives in. What's happening to them, the things that are frightening them, the things that are making them upset. But it's just a lovely way to, use English. And, I want all teachers to think today from this session, maybe just try this out, suggest it to your students. We don't need to force students to do it. If none of these students were forced, they literally wanted to send me a video. So, don't force people, but, just give them that option. They can practice, do it at home. They can show it if they want. They don't have to show it. If they don't want to show it, don't get them to show it. Definitely not. But that's not the point, And as we said, there are some mistakes there. There are some things that are not quite right. It makes no difference. She's funny, she's vibrant, and she's using English. What more could we want, really?
Absolutely. Yeah,
I'm so glad
much,
we could see it. I'm so glad that we could see that. I know we're a little bit late, but yeah, it was important, I think, to see that. It's a nice idea, and I do sincerely thank the. Actually, I should tell you, I made a video myself, which I sent to the school during lockdown, and they enjoyed. They all do this because I do this in my videos, so I explained why I do this. So. Well, I'm glad that we saw that. I'm sorry about the technical problems. These things happen, but. Thank you so much.
Isn't this the global pose for I'm an academic? Isn't that what that means?
I'm
speaking about something academic.
This is so you're not scratching your nose or your ear or you're doing all sorts of terrible things. This is much safer.
I've got my hands on my desk. I do this actually. I think that's my go-to. We've had a couple more questions, Dave. Can I ask you another one? I'm
fine if you're good. Yeah.
So it's going back to the presentations that you spoke about earlier, and asking, so this is Camilla, she asks, should they present to their class in English or in their mother tongue?
The presentation, well, that's a great question. Maybe it depends a bit on level. Maybe it depends a bit on the level of different groups. I would prefer it to be in English, obviously. And if they're doing it in English, but making a few mistakes, I'm not worried. If they make mistakes with the explanation, you're going to want to stop them afterwards and say, well, hold on, when you said that this is true, is that true or is this true? We're still revising. We're still getting lots and lots of really useful practice. If it can be in English, then better. So if they make a mistake with their grammar when they explain, I'm not worried. If they make a mistake maybe with the grammar itself that they're explaining, then I would be a little bit more worried. But if you're worried about that and if you don't want that to happen, do it in your own language if you think that's good.
Right, brilliant. Thanks a lot, Dave.
It's a question of knowing your class, knowing your students, knowing your level.
And Dave, if I may, even if there is indeed a problem when they are explaining the actual grammatical structure, then in a sense, it's the most precious feedback you could possibly get as a teacher, then you know for sure that your intervention is needed and welcome.
Absolutely. And so the pair or the group that is explaining it, they make a mistake. So the next question is for the rest of the class. Okay, are we happy about that? Is there anything you'd like to change? If they're all happy with it, as you say, that's immensely useful feedback. It means that you didn't succeed in teaching what you thought you were teaching, and you need to know that feedback. And it's better to know that feedback, for example, before evaluation, so that you can do something about it.
Yeah. So, Dave, if you don't mind, there was another question about, because you answered a question about what about adults, and you spoke about how a lot of what you're saying is also very effective as it is for adults. Would you tweak it, do you think, for younger learners, younger than teens learners?
I don't think, I mean, I'd need to think again, because obviously I'm a teacher of teenagers now, but I've spent so many years teaching adults. I think I would do it virtually exactly the same. I mean, your students will respond slightly differently because they're more mature, not always more mature, and get them to do it the same way. Yeah, why not? I mean, the question that came with Joanna about games, I mean, most of the games that I use with teenagers, I use with adults. As, I think we've all pointed out, if it's not a babyish game, a word game with adults works exactly the same as they work well with teachers. If I do a game with teachers, they get more excited than the students.
Yeah.
And we're adults.
Yeah, exactly. And I speak from personal experience, Dave. I'm one of those adults.
Without giving away age.
Okay, I think it's probably time to move on, isn't it? I think we need to say goodbye to Dave, and thank you very much for your presentation.